or being in conversations like so many of you are on a really regular basis helps condition our minds to be more comfortable and therefore more willing to take chances, you know, more willing to step forward in ways that maybe we haven't before. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. And I also want to just, your first homework assignment before we even start, because, you know, honoring the land of where we sit, just asking yourself right now, do you know who was on this land before it was colonized? Do you know who was on where your home is sitting right now before it was colonized? And Lynn named DC, but you know, there's people from all over the country here. And so your homework is to find out, right? Because this is the work that we're looking at and doing. Yes, right now we are in a very particular place, but as most of you know, I know a lot of you on here, I'm so happy to see so many of my friends here. You know, as a lot, you know, it's kind of like preaching to the choir oftentimes when I see the familiar faces, but as we know in this group here, this is not new territory. And we aspire to be anti-racist and we aspire to be allies, all of us. And do you know where your house lands? I know that I'm on Tongva land and have done lots of ceremony here and lots of acknowledging and of course, never enough. So just write that down as your homework. Do a little study. Where does your house land? Whose land is this? And maybe you'll find out some really interesting facts. Just about the trees and the animals and the sky and therefore other humans that were not asked to leave, but were forced to leave. So much to say. A big part for me in being in these groups, although I am the speaker, you know, or I might be holding the space, I feel like we are holding each other. These kind of groups are so needed. You know, when I hear about the overwhelm and the grief and the confusion and this thinking that we can't do enough, you know, we can't do enough in a day to wake ourselves up, to help, to assert, the exhaustion, the fear, right? All of these things that I think it would be fair to say would be in our immediate consciousness for us as individuals. I know for sure in my home. And then this global consciousness is exhausted. America is definitely exhausted. And what we're going to pay attention to a bit together today, and what my sort of expertise is in the area of meditation and mindfulness, is what happens to our minds and our bodies and our hearts when it's just too much, you know? And we live in a society where we definitely take in too much. You know, for the most part, what the privilege of this time of having made it this far in the human body is, you know, we're doing it right now. We're sitting in front of a computer, or we have a smartphone, or we, you know, take in tons and tons of news, or we have grocery stores where there's an abundance of choices, or we, you know, walk through the world like, well, what kind of car do I want to drive, or where do I want to live, or who do I want to spend time with, or what am I going to eat for dinner tonight, or, you know, just this abundance of choice. And when we think about that, that alone can be overwhelming. I mean, just the very simple choices that we have about, I mean, when we wake up in the morning, every morning, it's like, well, what color socks am I putting on today? What shoes am I going to wear? What clothes am I going to wear? I mean, that's a quandary of huge privilege, right? That we even have a choice. So here we sit. I'm sorry, I'm slightly distracted. Again, here's my choice. I'm having people text me about, hey, Valerie, can you text Bambi the link? Do you mind? Thank you. People are still trying to get on the call that might not have gotten the link. So what our mindfulness practice, sometimes people want to equivocate that with a meditation practice, and I'm going to separate those two a little bit right now. But what it asks of us is to slow down, to be still, to be quiet, pull back from all of the information, the onslaught of choice, and deeply settle into our own experience, right? So many of us are constantly leaning forward. We get very greedy in terms of we want to know more, we want to take in more. And in actuality, that greed is a way to numb. It's a way to disassociate. It's a way to separate from what's actually at hand, which is oftentimes, like I was pointing to, a lot of grief, a lot of fear, a lot of sadness. And as we've seen, if any of you have been watching the conventions, which are hard not to watch, you know, so much of what's being slung is fear. And it's very wisely being slung as a distraction, right? If this country can be in a lot of fear, then a lot of hatred can continue. That fear creates enemies. That fear creates othering. That fear creates us. Even what we're doing now, where we're really isolating, right? This is what happens from fear. And therefore, we can't see the other. We can't see what others need. We can't take care of each other in community because we're so worried about our own personal survival or the survival of our families or our homes or our bank accounts or our land, whatever we call the separation into mine. So when we slow down and really allow ourselves to experience and know sadness, no separation, no grief, no overwhelm, you know, the question and the reflection for ourselves is, well, do we know even how to do that? Most people, 99.9% do not. Are all of us included. I'm going to include myself in that. Because I watch when discomfort arises. When discomfort, you know, just reflect for yourself. What do you do when discomfort arises? And I'm talking about emotional discomfort. Typically, we start planning. We want to fix, we want to change, we want to control, right? This is where we move. When we're uncomfortable, we need to control things. That's the anxiety, the worry. If I can control it, if I can compartmentalize it, I'll be okay. And that's really a delusion, right? It's a delusion. It might work momentarily, but what tends to happen is we then get stuck in that space. We get stuck in the space 24/7 of fixing, controlling, planning, fixing, controlling. And all we're doing, it's like we're at a slow jog all the time. We're at a slow jog trying to get away from discomfort. What our meditation practice asks us to do is to stop. Is to get off the treadmill, stop walking, right? And I can ask you now, does that idea make you uncomfortable? The idea of stopping. And I'm not talking about apathy. I'm not talking about lack of action. In reality, when we're moving forward so fast, we can tend to forget what we're even moving forward towards, what we're doing. You know, when we look at group consciousness and group thought and even mob mentality, sometimes it's called, oftentimes we can look and say, am I just doing this because everybody else on social media? I'm watching as people post things on social media. I know that more than half those people don't even know why they're doing it. They're just doing it because they saw somebody else do it and they're forwarding a picture. Haven't done the research, don't know why, right? We do things, why we do what we do. So sitting still really begs us to check into why we're doing what we're doing. Why are we hopping on that train? Why are we, even fighting the fights that we're fighting? And why this matters around racism or anti-racism is because there's no way around the pain in this conversation. So if we're gonna try to avoid the pain through planning, doing, moving, we can't ever really get to something honest and genuine so that we can then move forward with clarity. Does that make sense? We're often not very clear when we do what we do, when we say what we say. Like I said, so often we're parroting somebody else. And I'm trying to decide what to talk to and what not to talk to. I don't want to stay too far away from the mindfulness practice. But the difference between meditation and mindfulness, right, is so our meditation is that which helps us learn how to be resilient, to sit with, to deeply know closely and clearly what's going on inside. What is my heart? What is my mind truly doing right now? So that's the meditation practice, helps us do that. And then the mindfulness is actually what moves us forward from that meditation practice, moves us forward through how we speak to people, what our actions are, right? How skillful or unskillful we are. That would be our mindfulness practice. So starting with the meditation so that our wisdom, like our deepest wisdom, can shine. What the mindfulness practice will do will be to help us know our history, help us know what happened, help us know how we got here. We can't truly be wise if we don't know how we got here. Again, that's a diluted way of thinking, not diluted, but diluted. And how we got here, another piece of homework that I'm going to encourage some of you to do is to know your ancestry, know your story, your family story, your DNA. Oftentimes when we get into this anti-racist work, white people will tend to want to read all about people of color. They'll want to read about brown people or black people or watch that movie or post that photo of that black person, or it's like it gets into the business of people of color for a lot of white people doing anti-racist work. But a crucial aspect of anti-racist work for white people is knowing your history, knowing your family, knowing where you came from. Because this is the intersectionality. This is where we're colliding. How we got to a place that many of us saw 2 days ago, where a black man is shot in the back without any weapons, any defense, and a young white man holding arsenal in his hands, who has killed 2 people, is kindly walked away into prison, right? And so we got to see the starkness of that the other day. Not that it hasn't been there, but we got to see it again in stark contrast in the same day 2 days ago. And so this is this is our responsibility. This is where we fell asleep. This is where our ancestors, white, people of color, stopped. We forgot about 200 years ago that we were still in a disentangling of history. Our history is very tangled. And, you know, something happened where people fell asleep. And then we get to see, you know, we know, I'm sorry, I need to plug my computer in. We know many times over the last few hundred years, there have been incredible marches, battles, wise people come forward and then fall asleep. Come forward, fall asleep. Come forward, fall asleep. In my mind, we do not have any more luxury, right? And I think everybody on this call would agree. The luxury of falling asleep is not there. And we all live, you know, all of you are in different homes right now, and it's so beautiful. Actually, one of the things I love about Zoom is because we get a little glimpse into where other people are sitting, where other people are located, you know, and I mean our location in many ways, not only our physical location, but our social location. You know, here we sit with very, very, very different stories. We all have very different stories. And that story is being told on the outside and it's being told on the inside. But there's no way that I can possibly know what you, Suzanne, live like. Or what you, Billy Kay, live like. And so a lot of this racist, anti-racist work that we're doing is to try, and again, I'm talking through the lens of mindfulness, is to the best of our abilities, know that we all have different experiences. We all land in different places. And so I don't know what it's like to wake up in Kathy A's home. You know, or to go to sleep in Priscilla's home. I don't know what it's like to be in your body, right? And so the reason I'm pointing to this is the more awareness, or the more we try to maybe understand it's not all about us and our experience, but the multiplicity of experiences. I don't know many, now that this is me personally, I don't know of my friends, my Black friends, my husband, my son, my daughter, and all of the friends that I have that I hold dear. I don't know anybody that's waking up unafraid right now or going to sleep unafraid right now. It's, and if it's not afraid, for me, I'm using the word afraid because I don't even like it when my son or husband walk out the door and get in the car. But the level and impact of grief in the heart is very real. And so I don't know what non-people of color wake up like, right? Like, do you get to wake up and not think about race? Do you get to wake up unafraid? And if so, another piece of homework would be to maybe in some way, one of the things I love about altars or some kind of space is it gets to be a daily reminder in my home, but maybe would be to put up, you know, a picture or a reminder of a child that ICE separated from their parents. Like, how often through your day do you think about that? Do we think about that? How often through your day is a migrant farm worker's life, you know, thought about how they're living? How often through your day do you think about how Japanese internment survivors have passed on their legacy to their grandchildren? How often through our day do we think about those people that were native to the land that our houses are on? Where are their ancestors? Where are their families now if they're not in their home territory? How often in a day do we think about that? So these are the reflections when we slow down from that constant diligence of fighting. I use this because I feel like my fists are like this so often. You know, how often through a day, and it's not so much so that we can get more angry. It's not so much so that we can, you know, be pissed off some more, but it's really truly an honoring for the suffering that so many have experienced. And again, going back to the privilege that, you know what, we can just turn on a television and forget. We can binge on some show and just forget. We can, you know, do what we do. Whatever your flavor of choice of numbness or forgetting is. And I'm not saying it's not okay to take a break. That's not the point. But is it a break or is it a dissociating? Is it a break or is it a forgetting? And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Too often we've forgotten. We've allowed ourselves to forget. And that's why the replay happens. We get to replay it over and over again. You know, it's that simple thing. Like I remember when I was dating and I kept dating shitty people. And I'd always be like, how did this happen again? How did this happen? You know, it's like, well, JoAnna, you weren't paying attention. I numbed out. They were cute. They were cute. I forgot, right? So it's easy to fall into old ways of being if we don't stay awake. If we don't know why things happen. So knowing why and how we got to where we got to, and then moving forward from that wisdom is really so profound and key for change. And is really what a lot of our meditation practice can help us do. And so we're going to practice together for a little bit right now. And one of the things I want to point out is it's totally okay to be uncomfortable, right? So many people will stay away from being still and quiet, like I said at the beginning, because it's uncomfortable. You know what? There's a lot more that's uncomfortable right now. So I think it's okay that we check into and look at what is it like to be uncomfortable right here, and why am I uncomfortable? Why does sitting still and being quiet make me uncomfortable? What is that? What am I running from? What am I running to? So it's okay to be uncomfortable. I'm just gonna give that permission, like be uncomfortable. It's okay that your mind is gonna think. That's what our mind does. So it's a misnomer that you can only meditate with a still mind. So it's actually impossible. So many people will say to me, I can't meditate because I think too much. And it's like, well, yeah, welcome to being human. That's what this mind does. So it's totally okay that your mind thinks. Thinking is not the problem. Thinking is not the problem. We need to think. That's what this mind does. It's our relationship to those thoughts that can get us and land us in the continual loop of the conversation in our own minds, which sometimes has a bearing on reality and sometimes does not. You know, so often this thinking mind is just merely reconvincing us of old habits. It's merely reconvincing us of things that we've thought 1,000 times before. It's not new. It's not groundbreaking. It's the same old, right? It's like when we only hang out with the same people all the time, and we only hang out with them because they think exactly like we do, and we're so safe, you know. No, that's actually that's how societies die. That's how biology dies. It's how plants die. It's how ecosystems die. If we don't have diversity in our ecosystems, it doesn't survive. So the same is true for information we take in, and the same is true if we only live in our own minds constantly, right? Because it's just like I said, we're just reconvincing ourselves. It's that confirmation bias. It's like, yeah, I thought that yesterday. I thought that 10 years ago. I thought that 20 years ago. I'm going to think it again tomorrow, right? And it's oftentimes not helpful. So when we sit,
yeah, this too. Not good. I'm happy I picked this place so far. Well, so far.
Mute Raquel. Okay. So when we sit, watch that mind. Watch the replay, the obsessive, the mind that just says the same thing over again. And when it says the same thing over again, we can't deeply listen for new wisdom, because our mind will just convince us over and over again. And then, like I said, and then we only hang out with the same kinds of thinking people, and then we only read the same kinds of thinking things. And then that's where lack of diversity truly wins. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay that the mind thinks, but pay attention to what it's thinking. And I think I'll stop at that as far as instructions. So we're gonna sit for about, time flies. Okay, we're gonna sit for about 20 minutes. And when I say sit, that is synonymous with meditate. We're gonna do our meditation practice for about 20 minutes. And you can be really in any posture that is comfortable and easeful for you. So a lot about our posture is we want to be awake, present, alert, and we also want to find some level of ease, right? So it's a both and. So we're holding that paradoxical tension of being easeful in our bodies and yet at the same time awake and alert. So finding a posture you feel like you can somewhat maintain for 20 minutes. If you're comfortable closing your eyes and allowing the eyes to close, and if not, it's quite fine, but don't be looking out at the screen, maybe looking just inches in front of you. Just take a few deep breaths. We won't be paying much attention to the way we breathe. We will be paying attention to the fact that we are breathing. But right now, really taking full, huge, belly-filling, chest-filling breaths, just to help us settle, help us land. And then just allowing breathing to happen naturally, not controlled or changed. But maybe paying attention to the fact that the belly expands and contracts with each breath. The chest rises and falls with each breath. Breathing is happening. And then from here, allowing yourself to feel your body, that you are in a body. So often we are just living heads, we're living minds that happen to have this thing called a body that carries us around. But truly, this body is full of so much wisdom. So allowing yourself to settle into sensations in your feet, sensations in your hands, feeling your body and its contact with whatever you're sitting on. So really feeling the pressure, the weight, the contact with your chair or your sofa or your cushion. Maybe you can feel the temperature in the room that you're sitting in, just merely through the skin. Maybe you can feel the clothing that's in contact with your flesh. Whatever sensations you feel alive in your body, just recognizing them, knowing they're there. Again, knowing that you're in a body. And when the mind kicks in and starts telling a story, as it will, thinking forward, remembering a conversation, a plan, totally normal, totally okay. And then from here, see if you can allow yourself to say, I'm thinking, and then come back into this body. This body, which is truly the only thing present. This body feeling each moment. How much can we stay right here? No need to distract or numb or pull away. Just stay right here with this body, this breath. Very simply breathing in and breathing out. When we don't distract ourselves with our minds, what's present? What's here? Maybe there's a lot of ease because our nervous system gets to settle. It doesn't have to do anything right now. Giving ourselves permission to exist, to just be here. Maybe slowing down puts us in contact with emotions or feelings that we've been trying to avoid. I'm just seeing if that's okay. Allowing ourselves, just for right now, to not need to do anything. We do not need to do anything.
I mean,
And truly, the practice of this meditation, this insight practice, we over and over again are just reteaching the mind to stay fully present. We don't actually need to go anywhere. Coming back home over and over again, home to this body, this breath, keeping it very simple. Again, remember, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel sleepy or restless, worried. Joyful. Whatever's there, we don't need to get rid of it. We don't need to fix it. Just knowing what it's like to exist right in this moment. Deep, radical acceptance of our experience in this moment. If the mind has taken over, all we need to do, very simply, just remember the body. Find your feet. Find your hands. Remember that breathing is happening. Remember over and over again, where am I right now? Where am I right now? And just check in when you feel uncomfortable. What does the mind do? Where does it take you? And just knowing that's merely a process of being in this human form and very gently coming back. Breathing, feeling sensations, pressure, temperature. You can't do this practice wrong. So just allowing yourself the experience of sitting. Sitting in this body. breathing this breath. And as we end this practice, we're sending gratitude. Gratitude to our own bodies. This body that right now can breathe. This body that can feel. In whatever manifestation or form we walk through the world in. Deep gratitude that you're here, that you showed up. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And seeing how much, so often we stop a practice and it's like, okay, boom, we're right back into the fast pace. See if you can stay connected to your body, to your breath for the rest of our time together. I'll really challenge you for the rest of the day. So when we practice in this way, using mindfulness meditation practice, we're not practicing to forget. We're practicing to remember. And when I say that, oftentimes we can sort of use these spiritual bypasses as ways, like the phrases when I hear, if any of you say this, my apologies, I'm not trying to diss anyone, but like, I love everybody, sort of like, well, is that really totally true when we make a statement like that? Or is that some kind of like radical bypass? Like that would be really nice. That would be great if that was true. But a lot of times it's not. Or when we say we're okay when we're really not. When we think we're supposed to show up in certain ways when we just know we can't. So this practice is helping us to actually be as true and authentic as we can be. And we can't be that until we know what's going on. So it's a practice of remembering. The term mindfulness actually comes from a Pali word, a language that was used 2,600 years ago in India. This word sati translates to mindfulness or mindful. And sati means to remember, right? So we go away, we pull out, we forget, we come back, we remember. And why this fits so well and with the anti-racist work is sometimes, and not for everyone, like I pointed to, sometimes we want to forget. And this sort of halcyon days of forgetting is what we can't afford to do anymore. So I'm kind of curious for some people. I'm sure I see that there are questions over to the side. And I want to see how that practice was for some people. Like, are there people here who have never meditated? Or would it be fair to say that most people here, more than half of the people on this call, I can't see it all, photo pictures aren't there, but
JoAnna, I wonder if they can just raise their blue hand. So that
raise
way
your
we can see. Yeah, raise your blue hand if you have meditated before or if you haven't.
Are we raising if we have or we haven't?
it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't need to be a thing. I'm curious if anybody has any particular question, like a gnawing question that would be helpful. Because I'm going to sort of say to you, I think it's beautiful to take on a practice, a daily practice, not as another assignment, not as something else we have to take on, but as a way to, like I said, remember, to engage with, to be close to our own deepest knowing, to give our nervous systems a break from the constant onslaught of tasks and to-dos. And whether that's laying in bed, so somebody asked, is it better to sit on a chair or the floor? It doesn't matter where you are. You can be lying down, you can be standing, you can be walking. It's that practice of how often, just a question to you, how often are you awake and just doing nothing? And when I say doing nothing, I don't mean, we get so caught up in, I'm lazy if I'm doing nothing, or I'm wasting time if I'm doing nothing. But in reality, so much of our mental health that's not due to maybe a chemical issue, but mental health, physical health, that is just because we're overburdened. And I'm not talking about mental health as far as diagnostic help, but I'm talking about our mental health in terms of how healthy is our mind and how capable is our mind of allowing it to rest. And so how often do you sit? I've taken on a practice, and I assign it to a lot of my private students, of sitting and not meditating. You're not meditating, you're just sitting still for a half hour. You don't have a phone in your hand, you're not watching anything, you're not reading anything, you're just sitting. And that, if we look at 100 years ago, that wouldn't be a radical question to ask. If we look at even 50 years ago, that wouldn't be a radical question to ask. Pre-electronics. How often do we just sit? The old rocking chair on the porch, just watching the birds, watching the flowers, seeing people walk by. So healthy. How often, are you with family members or people you care about without a device in your hand or without an agenda? And again, what does this have to do with anti-racist work? Well, if we think about our inability to sit still, our inability to then, which leads to us not truly actually seeing other people. If we can't, we're usually so stuck in our own minds and our own mental process, we don't see anybody else. We just see our judgment, our opinion, our ideas. Therefore, when someone else is speaking, we don't actually hear them. Or when we see somebody else, we have preconceived ideas. And this is so much, again, goes back to the fear. If we have preconceived ideas about a gender, a race, a way of living, a way of being, we don't see those people. We just become separate, opposite, different, other. So, you know, asking the question to yourself, what was it like to sit with yourself? If we can't sit with ourselves, we definitely can't sit with other people, right? Not in a wholehearted way. And it's not a judgment on ourselves either. Like I do meditate every single morning. And I'm usually on my cushion for upwards of an hour because I have a whole practice that I do that involves other things than just what we did. But some days I am wiggly, restless, anxious, angry, upset, tired, whatever. It feels unbearable and I do it anyway. And other days, a lot of ease, a lot of openness, a lot of compassion, a lot of care, and I do it anyway, right? So just the encouragement, we don't sit on a cushion to become good meditators, not the point. We sit on a cushion or a chair. I'm using cushion as the metaphor for our meditation practice. We sit so that we can just deeply, so that we can then move forward in life with this same ability to stay connected to ourselves and therefore to others' experiences. And we have a Steiner quote here. We must have, I know that we have the Waldorf communities at front and center, right? So the mindfulness meditation work is such a beautiful companion to our anti-racist work. Beautiful companion.
JoAnna, can you speak to just for many BIPOC people? I think, we've been dealing with issues of racism and oppression, most our whole lives. And with what's happened in America, it's just sort of present in a way, sort of more nonstop, where we, I think, George Floyd.
Kirsten, you sound like a robot. Your voice
Your microphone is off. Maybe you should type in your question because your microphone is a little bit off.
Okay.
I missed what you were saying. I'm sorry.
I think she's going to type it in.
Okay.
It'd be better.
I love it. My grandmother used to sit on a lawn chair on the city sidewalk. That's beautiful. So thank you, Joseph, for saying that. Another misconception about a meditation practice is that it has to be quiet. We have to be in some kind of rarefied, perfect, like flowers and candles and statues and, silence. You can meditate anywhere. Park bench, city street, in your car, on the toilet, kids and dogs yelling in the house. Doesn't matter. Because like I said, the point is not to be really good meditators. The point is so that we can move through the world and be tolerant and know what's going on around us, right? So if a barking dog or a kid or a whatever that's noisy and distracting you, let's work with that. Take it in, listen, know it's there. Can I still be grounded? Can I still be settled? Can I still be in my heart? Can I still be non-distracted? Because we know we are dealing in a world with a lot of chaos right now. And so that's great. Sit on the lawn chair in the middle of the city street and practice. See how connected you can stay in your body. Okay, Kirsten, can you give BIPOC advice about bringing meditation to help us as we're experiencing great ongoing intensity around issues of race? Yeah, so really it's not any different than what I've been pointing to. So here we sit feeling grief, injustice, anger, fear, all of it. So often, for us to know authentically what we're experiencing, versus what the stories the mind is telling about this moment. Paying attention to when those are in disagreement with each other. So when I am, so I'll give an example. If grief is arising, which, I mean, the tears I've shed, right? And I'm gonna use myself as an example, the daily tears that are being shed, that is grief and fear at the same time. And so my first step could be, there could be a few things that I could do. I could isolate, be really pissed off, shame and other, right? I could do that, which I've definitely found myself doing. Or I can sit and experience the gravitas of this grief and sadness and fear first, and then with a wiser intention, I can move forward in clarity with my actions versus my actions actually causing more impact and harm. I can be much more useful if I have clarity. So a couple things for the BIPOC community: allowing ourselves to slow down, feel the intensity, and feel the grief. Because so often, and I know this, you know, I can't speak for everybody, which is what I was saying earlier, but I know my DNA, my ancestry, the Black woman in me, it's like, pull your shit together and keep going. Pull your shit together, get out there, take care of the children, feed the house, clean the house, do it, get it done, get it done, get it done. And so often, and I'm watching it because I'm doing a lot of work, facilitating a lot of groups right now that are doing big anti-racist work. There's such a disconnect from their own experience and bodies because it just has to get done. The work has to get done. And so what's happening is they're, even in these beautiful organizations, I'm not going to name names right now, but there's infighting happening. You know, there's infighting happening in organizations that are trying to get a lot done, and that's slowing the progress down because we're wasting time hating on each other and we need each other right now. We really need each other. And so if we are, you know, we're even watching this within political parties, we're watching this in so many ways, just that it pulls us apart. And so if you need to take a break and slow down and take the day off and say no more, I can't do anymore, with great wisdom, like put the phone down, close the news, feed yourself. You know, we need to feed ourselves and take care of ourselves right now.